Menji speaks, and then he speaks and speaks and speaks and speaks some more.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, across all platforms to Menji Speaks for real. This is going to be a different type of video. I'm going to be speaking a bit more off the cuff than I normally do because this is an issue that I don't really feel deserves my normal brand of comedy. So it's not going to have any of my normal editing and things like that. I'm not pre-scripting this video, so it may be a little bit boring and definitely a different style than most people are used to. But if you could, please bear with me. I promise I'll try to at least make it as entertaining as I can. But I'm basically going to be telling a bit of a story, a cautionary tale, if you will, that I think could apply to anybody, especially here in the United States, maybe in Canada too. I don't know if this applies. It might. We'll see. So first off, though, please let me just welcome everybody to the year 2019. Happy New Year. Hopefully this one goes well for everybody, including myself, but also for you. So Happy New Year. With that said, I felt like this was a good time to finally bring up this subject. This is a video that I've been putting off for a very long time, mostly because it gives me a lot of anxiety. You can still hear my voice is a little shaky. Again, I haven't really prepared any remarks for this aside from, little talking points in my head. But yeah, this is a situation that has given me a lot of anxiety, and it's caused me to kind of delay putting this out there for a while. Just thinking about it just kind of gets my heart racing and my gut wrenching. And so it's difficult, but it's time. And with this being a new year, I felt that this was probably really appropriate to kind of get the new year started with this, get it off my chest, and then going back to, my normal style of videos, the funnier ones. I'm going to try and keep the random editing down as much as I can, but there may be some points where I'm just going to have to YouTube edit, which I hate, but it may be necessary. Anyways, the TLDR to this video is I'm going to be speaking about a moving company, Budget Rent-A-Truck. So it's not a moving company, technically. It's a rental truck company, Budget Rent-A-Truck, parent company Avis. My terrible situation with them, or my experiences, and basically why I think everybody should avoid them. I'm not calling for a big mass boycott or anything. If they're your favorite company in the world and you have had nothing but great experiences, good on you. But for anybody else, it's a new year. People got new plans. Maybe some of you are planning on moving at some point in the near future. Maybe you're starting to gear up those plans right now. This is just a cautionary tale from me to you about my experiences, my terrible experiences. And so that's the TLDR. If you don't want to stick around, I don't blame you. I'm not expecting this to get a ton of views or anything. But I still want to put the message out there anyways. Okay. So as some of you may know, I recently moved down to Southern California. It's normally beautiful and sunny. Today it is rainy and overcast, and it looks like the Bay Area where I came from. I brought it with me. I guess it's mood appropriate for the video. And so this was a decision we did not come to lightly, me and my family. But it was about a year and a half in the making. We had been planning on coming down to this area for a while. And when we finally found a specific neighborhood where we wanted to be, then we started, making the motions to move. So originally what had happened was, in order to be able to come down here, we originally were planning on buying a home. We were living in a condo up in the Bay Area, but we weren't going to be able to make a down payment on a new home without selling the condo that we were currently in. So we actually did that first. Probably not the most advised decision, but it was the best decision we could make at the time. And it worked out because we had people that we could stay with. And we had worked it out so that when we sell the condo, we would have also been given a few months before we had to vacate. So that worked out okay. And so what we did was originally rented a U-Haul truck and got all of our stuff out of the apartment so that we could stage it for the sale and put it all into storage nearby where we used to live. And that's where it stayed for months. The move down here happened a lot later than we thought it would. We thought maybe, we'd be able to move after a couple of months, maybe 3 months at most. It took us more like 5 or 6. We didn't end up moving until around spring break time. But again, it was fine. We had people helping us out. We had places where we could stay. However, the living situation that we had once we had to get out of our condo, it was definitely temporary. It was not going to last very long. And it was definitely wearing on us. So it was a good motivator to get us to move out faster. But we were grateful for the ability to do that. But when the opportunity finally arose, I began to look up moving companies, or not moving companies, trucks, because it's just, we're Latino, at least I am, and my family. So, we're very do-it-yourself, especially when it comes to this. Any Latino probably knows you got at least one person in your family, an uncle or cousin, who's got a truck. If somebody needs to move, usually, that person with the truck will be called upon, and we will just move it all ourselves, much to the chagrin of our lower backs. And so it was the same thing when we moved out. We put everything in the U-Haul truck, big giant U-Haul truck. I'd never driven anything this big in my life. And so that situation was fine with the U-Haul truck. Everything worked out. We got the truck when we wanted it from the place that we wanted it. Moved everything to storage. A little bit of foreshadowing for what's to come. The only problem I even had with the U-Haul truck was that when they gave it to me, the meter was literally on E. Or is it this way on the camera? It was on E. Like, luckily there was a gas station around the corner that could take a truck that size, because I wouldn't have even been able to get it back to the house. But that was it. And then after that, everything moved easily. We moved everything, aside from some other issues with the storage itself. We were able to move everything easily into the storage unit. But when I began to research trucks for coming down to Southern California, I'm trying to look for a bargain, obviously. Maybe not the best decision to make again. But I was researching U-Haul and researching Budget and Enterprise and all those other ones. These are all known brands, right? So it's not like I'm going for like Acme Moving or anything like that. And so what I needed was a truck that I could pick up from nearby where my storage is so that I could load that all up, drive it down here to Southern California, and then leave it here in Southern California. And what we were going to do was go down with the truck full of furniture and then our family car. And the reason for that is that we actually have 2 cars. There's the family car, or my wife's car, and then there's kind of my car, the other car, which is just a sedan. So it's an old sedan. So it's probably wouldn't have made the trip on its own, and definitely can't hold a lot of furniture. So we were going to drive down there in 2 vehicles, dump everything off in the place right here where we're staying now when we found this apartment, and then leave the truck here and then drive back in the family car, because I still had a few more weeks of work. My kids still had a couple of weeks before spring break started, and so we wanted to make sure that we were doing all that during break time. So that was the plan. Not a bad plan. We were just going to move down on a weekend, go down Friday night, unload the truck on Saturday, dump the truck off on Sunday morning, and drive back home. It's about 6-7 hour drive, so it's not that bad. And we've done it plenty of times. Coming down to Disneyland, this is kind of what you do. So after researching, I found out that Budget was the cheaper of the options, despite U-Haul kind of being the number one truck rental company in the States. I'm pretty sure it is, and definitely the number one known truck rental company, especially for people that are moving on their own, moving themselves. But Budget was actually cheaper. It would actually, not only was it cheaper, not only was it cheaper, it was cheaper to both rent the truck. It was cheaper to rent it over multiple days as opposed to one day. And it was definitely cheaper to drop it off down here in Orange County than it would have been to drive it down to Orange County and then drive it back up. And I don't mean because of gas. I just mean the actual price of the rental was more expensive. They actually give you a cheaper price if you're just going to drop it off in another location. But I guess that's how they get their trucks kind of moving around the country. And so that was great. And it was a big, giant truck, which would have fit all of our furniture and then some. And so I did this all online, as we do nowadays. And so I made the reservation, paid the deposit, and I got a location that was, it was about 10, 15 minutes away from my storage locations. Perfect. And this was 2 or 3 weeks before we decided to do this plan. Pardon me if I'm cracking my knuckles. Again, I get very nervous and anxious talking about this. Right, so 2 or 3 weeks early, I'm prepared. This plan is set. We know what we're going to do. Everybody, my wife has got the weekend off from her job so that we could go down there and take care of this. We've got the apartment all settled. And so also for this apartment, we let them know that we were going to be here that Friday. That Friday, so that we could pick up the keys so that we could get in here. So that was kind of a date that was set. They were expecting us. It was an appointment to come and pick up the keys so that they could let us in and so we could start moving our stuff in. So a couple weeks go by. It's the week of the move coming up, and not even the week of. It's like 2 or 3 days. And it's 2 days. It's 2 days. It's 2 days before I have to go pick up this truck so that we can start this whole big old shindig. They call me up and tell me that they're not going to have a truck available on that day, and that instead I would have to go pick it up over in, oh my gosh, where was it? It was like in Oakland or something like that, like just somewhere over there in the East Bay, Oakland, Alameda, something like that. And first I'm annoyed because, I'd made this reservation weeks in advance. They knew it was coming. I don't know how they couldn't prepare for this. They told me they had a truck, and then now there's no truck. And so I have to go to the East Bay. The East Bay, it's not that big of a deal because where our storage was up in Marin County and we were staying down in San Francisco, it's actually not that difficult to get across the Bay Bridge, pick up the truck, and then there's another bridge called the Richmond Bridge, which connects Marin County and the East Bay, and that basically goes straight to where we're going. So it maybe adds another, like another half hour to the entire trip to go pick up the truck and then drive it over. So it's not that bad. So, I want the truck. It's fine. It's not a big deal. These things happen. That was my mentality. And I'm not one to complain, really. I'm not the kind of person that, screams and moans when somebody gets my order wrong at a restaurant. As long as, it's not something that I totally hate or completely inedible, I usually won't say anything. That's just who I am. Maybe I should kind of, demand more customer service satisfaction. But I'm not that guy because I've been on the other end of that. So, I don't really want to lay that on anybody, especially if I can see that they're trying their hardest to make things go right and just something happens. Right? Things happen. If somebody's going out of their way to make your time miserable, that's another story. So I don't complain. So it's fine. Okay, whatever. Then they call me up the night before I have to go pick up the truck again to tell me that now the truck that's in the East Bay is no longer available, and I have to go up to a town called Vacaville to go pick up this truck. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Bay Area in California, Vacaville is about a good hour and a half from San Francisco, and then you gotta also include traffic in that. So now not only do I have to go and get this truck an extra 45 minutes away from where I originally intended, drive all that way and spend the gas. Now I got to ask somebody because I can't leave my car nearby anymore or just have somebody nearby drop me off. I got to ask somebody else for the favor to drive me all the way up to Vacaville to get this truck. The night before we're supposed to go. Originally, I had wanted it 10, 15 minutes away from me. Now I gotta go an hour and a half, 45 minutes out of my way to go get this truck. And, they're fairly apologetic about it, but, for the most part, their outlook is just, well, the truck's not here. So there you go. Oh, God. And at this point, I'm frustrated beyond all belief, but all I care about is that we get this move done. It's the night before. What else can I do? This was the time allotted. I took the day off from work on that Friday as well. So I could do this. So a lot of pieces had to be put in place. And again, my wife, took her time off of work. She let them know that she was going to be gone as well. And they really needed her there. So this was like, I had to get it done. I'm just like, okay, whatever. And we go to pick up the truck. And so it's not even like a budget facility where we go to pick up this truck. It's just some rinky-dink local storage unit out there in Vacaville that just like stores trucks and handles kind of the loaning out of trucks when people need them out there. We get to this little storage unit and it's the only truck there. So at this point, even if something else goes wrong, I'm stuck with this one truck that I just had to drive out an hour and a half out of my way to go get. Not to mention the fact that now we got to drive back an hour and a half back to where I needed it. So yeah, I'm actually driving past where my storage is now to go pick up this truck. And it's the only truck there. The people there are very nice. Again, they're not budget employees, so I can't really blame them for too much. But so we get there and we go through the whole, the whole schlemiel of actually, checking out the truck. I may have to blur out some information on some of these things, but so I had to get the truck over there. And so we go and we do the whole inspection, walk around the truck. We go into the cab, and I remember that one thing the woman there that was working there, she warned me about is something called DEF. I already forgot what it stands for, but it's some kind of special oil that the truck needs to convert. It's a smog thing. It has something to do with converting the exhaust so that it's cleaner or something. So she warned me about the DEF, like make sure that the DEF is fine. And I said, yeah, it looks fine. So we're all good. She climbed into the cab with me. We made sure everything was fine. It looked fine to me. So this was a diesel truck. The U-Haul that I drove before was a regular unleaded truck, despite being the exact same size. So I've never driven a diesel truck outside of the military before, and the military obviously don't give a damn about no DEF. So this is all new to me with the DEF. But anyways, they checked it. We all checked it. Everything seemed fine. I'm assuming they checked it when the truck was dropped off as well to make sure it was fine. And so we go. And I get the truck, and we start driving off towards the storage unit. Now, as we're going, again, remember, this is about an hour and a half away from a storage unit. Maybe an hour, actually. And I'm clocking in at maybe 35, 40 miles tops on the freeway. And this is on flat ground. And so I'm thinking, that's just the way these trucks are. I've never really seen trucks go fast. You're always blowing by them on the highway. So I guess this is how fast they go. I've never really sat there and gone, how fast does a big moving truck go? I don't remember having that experience with the U-Haul truck. But again, that was an unleaded truck. So I figured this was normal. There are certain parts of the highway heading back into Marin County that are some really steep hills. And now this truck is struggling to maybe do 15 over the hills. I'm not having a good time. I've got my uncle who dropped me off following behind me because he's going to help. And, he's wondering why I'm driving so slow. I'm trying to put the truck into second and first to see if I can't get a bit more power to go up this hill. And it's just not going to go where you want me to go. And so we finally make it to the storage unit after God knows how long. That trip took forever. And we get the truck all loaded up. That part, smooth, fast, easy. But that was all me. The truck had nothing to do with it. But we get it all loaded up. We get the storage cleared out. We close out the storage because we don't need it anymore. Close out the storage. Gave them... I didn't have to give them the key, but I took my lock off of it, put the lock on the truck, because that's where I needed it now, paid off the storage, and we're done. Vamos. And so we take the truck back to where we were staying in San Francisco. Now, again, this is a big, giant truck. It's about a 29-footer, I believe. You're not normally supposed to be parking these on the streets, like in city residential neighborhoods, but there's nowhere else to park it. Nobody ever gives you places to park these giant things. You either got to have your own driveway or that's it. But we managed to find a nice long stretch of parking lot to park it. So we parked it overnight. So the plan was, it's filled up. It's Friday. We're going to drive down Saturday morning. the next morning early, because that's normally the way we do it, go into Los Angeles, leave around 5, 6 in the morning, pack up the family, and we go. So we stay the night, wake up, say our goodbyes. And again, can't stay in this house anymore either because the situation's not working out very well. And so we go to head out. So the truck's parked about a few blocks away from where we were staying. I tell my wife, just go on ahead. It's all good. We're fine. Just we'll catch up to you. So she goes ahead in the family car with one of my kids, the youngest. And me and my oldest son, we go in the truck. He wants to have a little adventure with Dad. Totally cool. Sounds like fun. Go to start the truck. Go to pull out of the parking space, and I try to drive the truck. It's on, the engine's turned, but like the gas pedal is not doing anything. It's not responding to anything that I want to do. It's just kind of idling forward. And I think, oh, maybe the gear is loose because it felt a little weird earlier. So I tried reshifting it, seeing maybe, I didn't get it exactly on the D or something, as I'm still kind of idling down the street because I figured out it's just it'll work itself out. So as I'm idling down the street, luckily, again, it's the middle of the night. Nobody's really out yet. There's no cars to worry about. But so like I'm idling down the street, stopping at stop signs and then idling forward again, still trying to get this truck to go, slamming on the gas pedal as hard as I can. It's not going. And I start sweating. Oh my God, there's something wrong. And so I'm quickly trying to find another parking space that will fit a truck that big again, in the middle of San Francisco, which, if you know, not that big of streets in San Francisco and not a lot of parking. I managed to find one space where I can park, but at like 6 or 7 o'clock, it turns into like a 2 or a 1 hour parking zone or something like that. But I parked there thinking that, okay, I'm gonna park it and see if I can't fix it myself. And if I can't, I can call the roadside assistance that they got for budget. And hopefully it'll all be taken care of really quickly. So I park. I let my wife know, obviously, that the truck is not started, but just keep going because somebody's got to go pick up that key for the apartment. So I'm like, just go. I'm sure everything will be fine. We'll catch up with you. Foreshadowing. It won't be. And so after a bit of trying to tinker with it, turn it off, turn it back on, see if I can't, research something, Google something to find an answer, it's not working. And so I give up and I throw in the towel and I call the roadside assistance. Now the real fun begins. So I'm just going to cut this part short. Just letting you know that every time you call the roadside assistance for budget or their customer service, you're going to be on hold for about 45 minutes on average every time you call. And so this is the first time I'm calling, but I figure it's normal. Once I get through, we'll be able to kind of patch up the situation and get moving. So I call and finally get through and kind of let them know what's going on. And they're like, okay, we're going to send somebody out there to you. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. This person doesn't get there until about an hour and a half to 2 hours later, maybe 3 hours. So by now, it's morning. Cars have started driving around. The parking limit has begun. And actually, that parking limit is there because we're parked next to a local corner cafe that I guess they asked for this parking limit to be placed there so that people could pull in real quick, order their coffee, and get out. But now we're blocking this entire block. People are driving up and they're mad because I guess they're expecting this space to normally be available for them to get their coffee. And people are like double parking. They're upset. Like the coffee, people are starting to come out of the store every now and then to glance at us. It's not nice. There's other people that are at least nice enough to notice that I'm kind of stuck somewhere and I have a young child and they're kind of feeling bad for us. Some people are talking to us. Eventually one of the coffee people comes out and asks us like, what's going on? When are you going to leave? And I have to let them know this dang truck's not working. And they feel bad for us. We even buy coffee from the coffee place. And so the lady that was originally there, like she was really nice and she was like, okay, that's fine. Don't worry about it. We won't call the cops on you. Having the kid there, I think really helped, like, little sympathy points. Eventually, so this guy gets out there at about 2.5, 3 hours later, whatever it was. and he just comes up in like a repairman's truck. I was thinking it was going to be a tow truck. No, it's just a guy in a repairman's truck. And he's just got some tools. And so he's looking around. He's a nice enough guy. And again, he doesn't work for Budget. He's just some other repair company that they contract out to. And so, first he's looking at the engine. He's trying to figure out what's wrong. And I tell him what happened. And then he thinks that there may have been a problem with the DEF. I don't know what the DEF does. But he's not sure, and he wants to check, and he's looking all over the place. And then he finally tries to go and read the computer. And he's got one of those he's got like this little mini computer that you hook into the Budget truck computer so that it can tell you what the errors are. And he is spending about half an hour to 45 minutes in the truck with this computer thing. And I'm thinking, what's going on? And then he's like looking all frustrated. And then he comes out of the truck and he's like, he's having issues with, it's a touch screen. It's a tablet, basically. It's a tablet with a touch screen. And he's having trouble just entering like the truck's VIN number and stuff because the calibration is off on his tablet to check the truck. And so he's sitting there trying to fidget with it to see if he can't like figure out where he should push it in order to actually push the button that he wants, because he needs to enter the VIN number, because for some reason the stupid tablet won't automatically recognize the VIN number. And I guess that's what they normally do, but this one didn't want to do that day. And so we're spending an hour. Eventually I remember that I have my travel computer bag with me, and his tablet has a regular sized USB port on it. And I'm like, here, dude, I have a wireless mouse. Let's just attach the mouse and see if that works. So I go and I save the day. I'm sorry, I just save only the morning with my mouse. And so the mouse works like a charm, and he can finally kind of do everything that he wants, just to find out that, yes, this truck is deadline and it will not work. Took 2.5 hours to finally do that. Meanwhile, the owner of the coffee shop has been summoned to the coffee shop to find out what's going on. And so she's getting upset. And she's more like, hey, you got to go, because we need this space here for coffee people. We're losing business because since people can't park there, I guess they're just driving by. They're just saying, forget it. And that's all their business. Mind you, that coffee shop is still there today. So I think their business is doing fine. But she was telling me they were losing business because my truck was stuck there. And I'm like, it doesn't move. I got my little kid here. Where am I supposed to move this giant truck to? San Francisco parking spaces typically can barely fit a sedan, let alone a big giant truck. And so she was at least kind enough to kind of scout around the block to see if she can't find another parking space that would fit the truck. And then she was going to go save it for us. And so because the truck will turn on, but again, it'll turn on, it just won't, or it'll turn over, it just won't let you push the gas pedal. And so what I have to do, this guy helped me out too, the repair guy, he goes out and kind of goes forward ahead to kind of save the space. And so I'm idling down, and this parking space is basically a U-turn around the block to the other end of the block. And so I'm idling as slow as an idling giant 27-foot truck will go around this block. People are honking at me. I'm taking the turns really slowly. And I finally get around to kind of this more residential area, and it's a parking space. Luckily, it's Saturday, so there are no other time limits. That one just happened to be like an everyday time limit place because of the coffee shop. And we get parked in this other space. And, the guy's like, I'm sorry. And he kind of gives me some advice. But aside from that, there was nothing else he could do. So at that point, you would think he would report back to Budget and they'd get back to me. No. I waited about an hour to see if they'd call me to follow up. They did not. So once again, I had to call them. Once again, had to wait. And then they kind of go through their notes and they're like, oh, okay, so we're going to get you, a tow. I think they also told me they were going to get me a truck. And I was like, okay. And they were like, but this truck is coming from Tracy. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Not Tracy. Maybe I'll edit this. Maybe not. From Chico. Chico, California, which is about a good, again, it's about a good 2 hours away in a normal car. Now, what they have to do to get this truck from Chico to me is they have to tow that truck. Towing a truck apparently is slower than driving normally. And so they said it's going to take about 3 hours to get this truck. Well, we're well into the afternoon now. It's getting a little windy and cold. My son and I, we were more dressed for being down here. So we weren't prepared for that. And so now we're just having to wait in this neighborhood. Can't really do anything. I want to stay with the truck. The truck's got all my stuff. We have to go, spend money on food that I wasn't really planning on doing until we got further down the road. And then we're just sitting around. There's nothing to do. There's really nothing else to do in that neighborhood unless you're the type that likes to go hang out in a coffee shop. But I'll tell you what, my kid is not. So, and I'm certainly not. And so we just kind of start walking around, killing time. And then 3 hours goes by, still nothing. The truck hasn't shown up. I think maybe I do get a call to tell me that the truck is going to be on its way soon. And I'm like, okay. But yeah, and then, 4 hours go by and they're saying the truck's going to be late. And then I have to finally call them like 5 hours later. It's like dinner time at this point. And I'm like, what's going on with this truck? You guys told me this truck was coming. And they're like, oh, yeah, they can't get the truck to you because they can't find the keys to the truck. The replacement truck. That's all the way down in Chico. They can't find the keys to it. It was the guys from the tow truck who called me to tell me that they were looking for the owner and they can't get the keys to the truck. And so now the truck's not coming. Again, budget doesn't follow up with me. I have to call them again. I've called them a few times throughout the day just to kind of get updates. And nothing or 45-minute waits, which is always fun. And then nothing, like, oh, we're doing the best we can, sir. And so eventually it's dinner time. I can't go anywhere, or, we need to eat. It's starting to look pretty bleak for this trip. My wife has already made it to LA. My mother flew out from Utah to help us move in. And so she flew out to here. But again, there was nothing for them to do. We had all the beds in the back of the truck, so they couldn't sleep in the apartment, and all the beds and the mattresses, so they couldn't sleep in the apartment. So now they had to go get a hotel room because where are they going to sleep? On the floor with, very little blankets. And so I say screw it personally, as far as waiting for this truck. And my son and I hop on an Uber, and we go down to Dave & Buster's down in San Mateo County, because I just I'm gonna at least show this poor kid a good time, because he's being a trooper. He was really hanging in there. He wasn't really complaining or, whining or anything like that. So I take him to Dave & Buster's for a little bit. While we're at Dave & Buster's, I get a call from a guy, and he's like, hey, I'm your tow truck. I'm like, my tow truck? Did you bring the other truck? He's like, no, I'm supposed to tow you to a hotel. Nobody tells me this. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so we hop on the Uber back to where the truck is, and that guy's waiting there. He's got a kid of his own, oddly enough. I guess he's showing him the ropes of towing. And so I'm like, what's going on? They're supposed to bring me a truck. He's like, no, they sent me here to pick you up and take you to a hotel. And then, figure that out after that. I don't know anything after that. And I'm like, okay, so what hotel are we going to? And he's like, I don't know. You choose. So they didn't even find me a hotel. Luckily, I know the area fairly well, and I'm trying to go southbound. And so I know that at least the hotels near the airport have bigger parking lots. And I'm like, okay, let's just take her down to the Holiday Inn by the airport, and then we'll figure it out from there. I guess that's where we're staying. So on the way, I call Budget, and they're like, yeah, you pick the place, and then we'll reimburse you later. And that was all the information they gave me. Luckily, when we get to the Holiday Inn, like, it's kind of back to like real customer service. The people at Holiday Inn are real nice. I let them know the situation, lots of sympathy and stuff. And I wasn't even sure we were going to get a room because, again, nobody checked on this beforehand for us. Luckily, there was a room. Excuse me. Luckily, there was a room. At first, I thought I was only going to be able to afford, a small 1-bed room just for me and my kid, just to stay in for whatever. And that was like $99. And they're like, actually, this other guy in front of you, he just switched over to a 1-bedroom. We had given him a 2-bed. Do you want his room instead? We're like, yeah. So now my kid and I, we get our own queen size beds in this really nice, it's like a business class Holiday Inn. So it's right by the airport. And so nice big room. And so that's kind of where we spend our night, at least, in the slight lap of luxury, and these really nice squishy Holiday Inn beds. My wife and my mother are staying down here at the La Quinta nearby. And that's kind of the end of that night, But like finally, we let them know about the truck, and luckily they had like a bit of their parking lot blocked off just for their shuttle trucks, and they said that they would let us squeeze it in there. And so, talk to Budget one last time. What a pain at this point. And again, every time I'm calling, I'm waiting about 45 minutes. Remember that. And they tell me that the truck should be there tomorrow morning. And I'm like, okay. And then after that, with all the reimbursements for the hotel and stuff, you got to deal with Budget directly. Because then I'm calling roadside assistance, which is technically not Budget. But at the same time, you start getting frustrated at somebody because like nobody's giving me any answers. So there is Saturday. Just shot. Gone. I've lost that entire Saturday. I'm supposed to be coming back home the next day. Or home. I'm supposed to be coming back up to San Francisco the next day, which I'm still in that area. Haven't moved yet. And so now I'm kind of thinking of contingency plans. Like, the truck comes in the morning. Like, apparently the guys that bring the truck, they're also supposed to bring some guys that help transfer everything from one truck to the other. So, at least I don't have to worry about doing that by my onesie with my, my 9-year-old kid at the time. So the morning comes and there's no truck. My son and I check out of our rooms at last possible minute. It's like 12. There's no truck. Then we're waiting in the lobby. There's no truck. Eventually my wife gives up and she's like, I'm going to start coming home because it's getting late. And like, I'm thinking of contingency plans. Like, do we just drive down and I just keep the kids out of school on Monday and call in sick and just try and gut it out? Not the best situation. Then I got to call in sick for work, which is not cool, even though, I'm about to leave. Like, I don't want to like start burning bridges and seeming like a jerk. I like to maintain a bit of professionality, if you know what I mean. But so like, right. So Holiday Inn, just right. So, I mean, like, what do we do now that weekend is shot? Like, she didn't want to stay out there, and there's no reason for her to stay out there. She was doing nothing here. She drove all the way down here just to get a key and drop off some of the few trinkets that we had in the back of the car, and that was about it. So we're still waiting for this truck. It's afternoon now. My son and I have eaten lunch. Eventually, the guys that are supposed to help transfer all of our items to the new truck have arrived. And they show up and they call me and they're there. And I'm like, well, there's no truck. And they're like, we don't know. And then eventually the guys call us, who are supposed to pick up the truck, the tow truck guys. And it was, again, the same thing. There's no key in the truck. And they can't get a hold of management in that particular location to get the key. Again, they've had 24 hours to take care of this problem. And they're like, but we can get the truck. So they're just going to bring it on a wrecker. And so we're coming up and they've got the truck. And so again, that takes about I think they were clocking faster time than they originally quoted me because it took them about 2 hours. So now we're sitting there waiting for 2 hours, me and my kid. The movers are also sitting there waiting around for 2 hours. It's starting to get dark. Mind you, this is spring, so it's not like it gets dark all that early. It's starting to get dark when the truck finally arrives. The sun is starting to set. It looks like it does now, except that there's no clouds. And it's freezing out here. We're in South San Francisco right now by the airport. It's freezing. The wind is pounding. And my son and I don't have much in the way of jackets, just like some hoodies. And so the truck finally arrives. And yeah, without a key. And so now when the truck arrives, they're like, okay, now we got to call a locksmith to come out here and fashion a new key for this truck. And so they just leave the truck in like some arbitrary location. We try and move. I think we had tried and move the original busted truck to, there's a convention center next to the hotel and it has a big empty parking lot because nothing's going on there. So they try and move it there. I forget if that happens before or after. They just dump the truck though. So like the trucks aren't even set in a way where it's easy for them to kind of move things. And obviously they don't want to leave all my stuff sitting there in the parking lot. So now we're waiting for the locksmith guy. And then, after about an hour, he finally shows up. And so he's taking his sweet time and he's got a bit of a toot on him for some reason. I don't know why. But I'm not really dealing with him directly. All the budget people and the movers and stuff are dealing with him. And then the tow truck people leave. Like, they're not even taking the busted truck. They can't. Still got all my furniture in it. And so finally the key gets made, but the locksmith will not hand over the key because nobody's paid him yet. And apparently he is not allowed to relinquish said key until he gets paid. And so, like, they're trying to figure, like, you get paid through budget. Like, they're supposed to pay you. And he's like, I don't know nothing about that. And it's this whole big kerfuffle. And so I, once again, have to save the day. And I decide to call budget. Once again, waiting for about a good 20 minutes to finally get through to somebody. And then I tell them the situation and that there's a locksmith here and he's supposed to give us the key, but he won't give us the key until you guys pay him. And that takes research. Like the lady that I'm talking to on the phone, like, puts me on hold and like has to kind of figure out what's going on. Like, this has never happened before apparently, and they have no plans for this, no contingency plan. And so she has to like talk to her manager about it, even though they've been supposedly taking copious notes about the situation. And eventually, like, she has to talk to the locksmith guy directly so that he can get the account numbers or whatever to get paid. And that whole thing takes about another half an hour to an hour. And, finally he gets his money. They hand the keys over to the mover guys. They move the two trucks, to a position where they can easily just swap everything around. And by that time, it is dark. It is dinner time. So me and my kid go into the hotel. Mind you, we're still hanging out this Holiday Inn. We don't even have a room there anymore. Me and my kid go to the restaurant there at the Holiday Inn to have dinner. While we're having dinner, like, my wife shows up. Like, that's how late it is. Again, it's about a 7-hour drive from LA. And she's got the younger one. So, he needs to take more frequent stops. And so she's there. So we're all at least together again, having dinner, while the poor guys are out there in this blistering wind, moving all of our stuff over. And that takes them about another 2 hours. By the time they're done, it's about 8 o'clock at night, 8 or 9 o'clock at night. Not only that, so now they're done. New truck's there. New truck works. But now I got to wait for the tow truck to take the other truck. Or at least I thought I was going to. The mover guys were actually like, just lock everything, leave the keys in there, and just the tow truck guys will come and get it. And I guess they did, because they actually ended up calling me. And so we drive the truck out of there. And we finally leave. But now it's like, where do we put the truck? You'd think the story was over at this point. Where do we put this truck? And so it pops into my head. My grandfather kind of lives near the airport, and his neighborhood has a lot more copious, wide parking than San Francisco does. And so I'm like, well, why don't we park it over there? There's some big open spaces there nobody ever uses. Let's just park it there. And so we go and we drop it off in my grandfather's neighborhood, and just kind of leave it there, because then, you know, I got to get back to work in the morning. And so I go, like, my whole family knows what's going on. At some point the next day, my uncle goes to check on the truck. He lives in that area also. And so he just goes to check on the truck. The truck has a notice on it from the local police department saying that I've got 19 hours to move the truck, because I cannot park, again, like I said earlier, cannot park a truck that big on a residential street. And so now I'm like freaking out. I'm nowhere near where the truck is right now. And so I'm freaking out, like, where do I put this truck? Where do you put something this big? And so now I got to rush down there, and I have, just the way the ticket was handed out, I had until like the next day. So the next day after work, I head straight down there to go deal with this truck situation. My uncle thought he had scouted out a place where he could leave trucks. It was this big strip on El Camino Real, but you can only leave commercial trucks there. This is not a commercial truck. You know, like, you need a permit, basically. So that was out. There was a truck stop nearby, and then you could rent parking there. But, like, it was like, what was it? It was like $25 a day or something to leave this truck there, and it might not necessarily be in the best location, and all that safe. And my entire home is in the back of this truck right now, and, you know, nobody's going to be checking on it and stuff. This entire time, I think I had forgotten to mention that while we were staying at the Holiday Inn, it's right along the freeway. Across from the freeway, there was, like, you know, one of those big giant rental car companies that you have near airports. In that parking space, I see at least 4 or 5 budget trucks, the exact same size as the one that I was driving. But mind you, this is not Chico. This is just South San Francisco. A good, 20 minutes away from where I was originally stuck. 4 or 5 of the exact same size truck, just sitting there, not doing anything. They didn't move. So I had a new truck now, so that was no longer, you know, the issue. But where do I put this new truck? I thought, what if I go over there to that place, plead with these guys, let them know the situation? They clearly have, it wasn't a budget facility, but they clearly had some sort of an association, and so part of their parking lot was delegated to just budget trucks, and they had all sizes, but there was a bunch that were just the same size as mine. And so that's what I do. I go down there and I plead with the guys. I let them know the situation, and, like, now I'm not going to be able to move again until next weekend, basically, which was actually, that was when we were going to move the next weekend. So the plan was to just drive down in our 2 personal cars. So they're nice enough to let me leave the truck there. Like, really nice. I wish I could remember the name of the rental car company right now, because I would totally suggest them to anybody flying into San Francisco. It's the rental, if you ever go into San Francisco, right off the 101 across from the freeway from the Holiday Inn, you'd see it. It's a big giant lot. These guys were super nice to us. Super, super nice. And they were nice enough to let us leave the truck there, even though they technically, I don't think we were supposed to, because, I don't know, some sort of regulations on what trucks they can and can't have there. But they were nice enough to let us park it way back in a corner, and just kind of, you know, leave it there like it was one of their own. And I was able to leave it there for a week and be relaxed. This place is all fenced off. It's gated. Like, the truck is all the way in the back corner. Like, it's safe for the most part. So that's done. Meanwhile, I'm still dealing with budget to figure out what's going to happen now. I was pleading with them this entire time to let me, either put the truck up in storage for me or have them move it to a storage for me, or at the very least, like, not let me, not charge me for this next extra week that I need for the truck. Not only that, and now I have to pay gas again. And now I've got 3 vehicles. Remember? Because originally my plan was to drop off the truck down here in Orange County, and then when I came back the following weekend to come in my 2 personal vehicles. Now I've got 3 vehicles, and so now I need to tow one of my cars. And so I'm like, can I get a tow? Please. For the love of Christ, at the very least, can you give me a tow to tow my other car so I don't have to come back up to the Bay Area one more time just to get my car, just to drive it all the way back down there? At the very least, if I could just take all my stuff like I originally intended all at one time. And that was a hassle. That was a hassle. They kept running me through loops. I had to call the original storage location up in Vacaville. I had to call budget, and then luckily it turned out that the place where I left the truck, they actually had a vehicle tow there. But again, they had to do like this weird contract thing where like they alter the original Vacaville contract so that now it includes the tow on it, so that and then they add that to there. And then, and then they won't tell you if they're going to refund you for the price of the tow now either, which again, I did not originally need, nor did I need this entire week of having the truck on me. But now I've been saddled with all of this and trying to figure out how am I going to get down there. And now, not only do I have enough anxiety driving this giant 27-foot monstrosity down the highway, now I got to tow my personal car behind me, which you can barely see when you're driving. So I'm just all freaked out. But eventually that situation works out where I at least get the tow cable. And again, the guys at the rental company down there in South San Francisco were super helpful. The dude that was there, he even like hooked it up for me. He was real nice about it. He helped me get the car all cinched in and everything. They were great. I love those guys. Thank you. I wish I remember their names. Then finally the weekend comes. This is it. Moving date, spring break. And so we're going to go, and we go. And that takes a very long time. And if you know anything about the highways, we took 101 instead of Highway 5 because Highway 5 has this one area known as the Grapevine, which is just this big mountain range that kind of separates the Central Valley from Los Angeles. And it's steep. I was already afraid to go in the budget truck alone, and now I'm towing a car. So we forego that and we take 101. It's a much longer trip. You hit a lot more traffic. So that wasn't fun, but we got here. Now, the other issue is I no longer have any help, right? I was not going to be able to fly down again. So now I had to like order like some movers, basically, a couple of guys to help us unload the truck. And unfortunately, we get there late. I didn't calculate in all the traffic properly. So that was kind of on me. I don't want to really blame that on budget. But again, I never needed those guys to begin with, is what really frustrated me about it, because we were just going to do it ourselves. But it just is what it is. So we get the truck down here. Luckily, we have those guys here because boom, boom, boom. We were able to kind of get everything off the truck and we just threw it all in the garage for now. And you're not supposed to store stuff in your garages here, but just for that one night, we just threw as much into the garage as we could. And then that was it. Finally, that part was over. I could find places out here to park the truck, although that was an adventure on its own, but it was fine. And then I was supposed to finally turn the truck in at its location in Santa Ana the next day. Story's not over yet. I'm sorry if this has gone on very long. Hopefully I'll edit stuff down. So we finally go to go gas up the truck, which is a pain because again, you've got a clearance that you have to deal with. And so I have to make sure that not only does the gas station that I want to go to have diesel, but that it covers the clearance for the truck, the height, so I don't scrape off the top of the truck and get yet another fine. That's the last thing I need, is just more issues with this truck. And so that was a big issue. Dealt with some rather nasty locals. But not everybody's like that out here. Just that day just kind of was bad. But we fill up the truck finally, and then we go head to the location where they told us to drop it off. This is a location that they originally had given me back when I originally had ordered the truck from when it was nearby where my storage was. Because they tell you where to pick it up and where to drop it off. They tell you all that stuff. So I was finally going to go drop it off at this location. So we go to this location in Santa Ana, and it's like an abandoned warehouse. You'd think a supervillain had set up shop inside. There's nothing there. And like I drive around the block a couple of times to see like maybe it's like a smaller parking lot off to the side that I'm missing. I'm trying to see if I see any other budget trucks or anything about another self-storage place, something. And I'm like, no, that's the place. This abandoned warehouse, this empty parking space, which again, it doesn't look like it even used to be a budget. It used to be some sort of like a warehouse store. So we drive through the parking lot, like maybe it's like around the corner inside the parking lot. And it's looking real sketchy. And we're like, no, there is nothing here. I don't know where to drop off this truck. And by this point, it's like, it's been just one thing after another, right up until the end, where I couldn't even drop off the stupid truck. So I eventually have given up on calling budget and dealing with those guys and their wait times. And so I just look up the local budget nearby me. And I'm just like, whatever is the closest one, that's where we're going. I'm leaving it there. We're done. And so I find a budget that's like at some hotel, like, 10 minutes away from this current location. And we go and finally just drop it off. Now, mind you, this is like a hotel. It's a nice new modern hotel. The roads aren't really made for moving a giant truck like this around. So that was a whole other issue, was just trying to get this truck in and parked. And the guy that checks us in, he was a really nice guy. He had nothing to do with the situation. He was just trying to do what he could do. Like I tell him, like, we were originally supposed to drop it off at this other location, but that place isn't there. And he's like, was it the place over on blah, blah, blah? It was West Street or something like that. I forget what it was called. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, oh no, that place shut down a while ago. Didn't they tell you? No. So apparently, luckily, that hotel was the new place to drop things off. But Budget System apparently had this old place which had been closed for months. Like since before I made the reservation, this place had been closed. But whatever. Dropped off the truck. Done with it. Dusted my hands. I am through with trucks. And so then we go inside to kind of finish off the signing off process. And so then he tells me, right, the price that I have to pay. And here I'm being super naive and just assuming they're just going to charge me for my original weekend. No. Not only did they charge me for my original weekend, they charged me for the entire week that I had the truck, and they charged me for the tow service. So imagine that the amount of days that you keep a truck over your original reservation, they actually charge you more than they normally would. So total price, I had to write this down eventually. Total price, $2,380. Now, originally, when I had rented the truck, I did the calculations, and with gas, it all would have come out to about maybe $500. Roughly. And again, that's with gas, because a truck like that, you have to keep constantly stopping. And so I just almost collapse on the desk. Like, no, I'm not paying that. I just quit my job so I could make this big giant move down here. Like, I'm not paying $2,300, for a situation that was completely out of my control. And so the guy was nice enough, and he's like, okay, what I'll do is I'll kind of put a freeze on it for now, and then call back and deal with it the next day. I tried to do that. Nobody picked up the next day. That was nice of him to do that. And it's true, he didn't charge me. But he's like, he wasn't the manager. And I guess he's like, the next day talked to my manager. when he sees that, he's probably just going to run the charge if you don't talk to him. But like, again, nobody picked up. What a shock. And then sure enough, yeah, they charged the full amount. And so now begins the fight with budget. And so this is like calls after calls after calls. And this is like, again, wait times. Remember I mentioned that? Like they have this hold song that now anytime I hear it, it gives me anxiety. I heard it the other day. We were at Kaiser Hospital, and one of the receptionists was calling some other location, and they had the phone on speakerphone, and that place that they were calling had the same hold music, and I immediately felt my blood starting to boil over, and I didn't even realize why until like it clicked. I was like, oh my God, that's the same song. And this was, half a year later. So I am talking with them. I'm emailing them. There's like different levels of customer service that you're supposed to be able to talk to. If like the lower level can't handle your situation or you don't feel like you're being treated fairly, you can go up to the next level. And then there's like ultimate customer service, supposedly. They called it like the president's office or something crazy like that. All of that was BS, I think. But I was emailing back and forth. I have, tons and tons of emails with these people, and they're basically just kind of giving me the runaround. Like, there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. Eventually, I kind of whittle them down. I'm like, what is going on? Making both phone calls and emails around. And so they eventually come up with an offer for me to kind of deal with the situation. So again, total price. It's supposed to cost me maybe $655. Oh, I'm sorry. It's supposed to cost me about $500 roughly to do this entire move. They were like, okay, just to kind of help you out because we know you were completely put out, we're going to give you $655.40 for your troubles. So the rest of the $1,891 is still on me after all that. And that's just because they were reimbursing the hotel and like my time. Which again, the hotel was only about $120 after tax. $600. That's what I was worth. That's what all my time was worth. All my aggravation, all the pain, the suffering of not only myself, my son, my family that had to check into their own hotel out of their own pocket because they had nowhere to stay either. Having to keep this truck I didn't even want. Not only did I not want this truck for an extra week, I definitely did not want the anxiety of having to find a place to store the dang thing. And so the $655, and that's all. That's it. Take it or leave it. It'll always be on the table if you want it. And I'm like, no. At the very least, I was willing to just pay the original price for the original weekend. And then that's fine. Let's just forget about it. That's what I was going to pay anyways. Again, I'm not one of these people that just like, no, you've done me wrong. Give me all the things. Like, I'll just pay for my original weekend, remove everything else from the books, and we're good. And I'll say goodbye to you. But no, they dug their heels in on this $655. And they're like, that's all you're getting. So I'm like, that's it. Okay, so last move is just get a lawyer, seek arbitration. And so for that, you got to send them a letter, which I did. So this is already in May now, about a month after we moved and dealing with these people. I sent them a letter through certified mail saying, either, I asked at this point in the letter, because now I'm so mad, I asked for $1,500 to just settle it and never hear from me again. And I sent it certified so that I knew that they got it. And never heard back, never got a call, an email, response, written letter, nothing. And so now I think, my only recourse is judicial, as it were. Like, that's it. It's to seek the justice system. I don't know what else I can do aside from just put the word out to all of you. And this is, we're coming close to a year now. So I'm going to start working on all this as it is, but I just a cautionary tale for anybody who stuck through this video. Definitely, don't use Budget or their parent company Avis. I know I never will again. I mean, if they're your favorite company, like I said earlier, to do whatever you feel you gotta. I will certainly never use them again. Like, I can't help but see every time a Budget truck drives by. I know the driver, it doesn't work for Budget, but I just can't help but scowl at it. Like, that's the nasty taste that this company has left in my mouth. Ooh, that sounded bad, but it's true. Like, just what a terrible situation. And it didn't even like, usually if something just affects me and I've had some kind of a bad situation with something, I'll kind of just internalize it and let it slide. But, you know, it affected me, my kids, my wife, my mother, my uncles. Like, holy smokes. All the different wheels that turned just from this one situation where now I had to keep this extra truck, this extra amount of time. I had to tow a truck, which was super anxiety filling for me. I almost thought I was abandoned with this truck because I had no idea where to turn it in. Like, it was amazing to me that they couldn't even suggest a place where I could leave the truck. Not even another Budget facility where I could at least leave the truck. No, it was on me to find out where to put the truck for a week. That's just crazy. You know, they're fine with leaving trucks at these random locations and everything's cool. But if you need help with where to leave your truck, they're just like, nope, I don't know. Find a place to park it that's legal. It's just, it was insane. And the people, for the most part, I remember there was one customer service person I spoke to. They started laughing at me because of all the issues I was dealing with. And the things that I was, you know, expecting, which wasn't much. She was laughing at me. It was disappointing. So I will never use them again. I would urge people out there to definitely take caution if you ever assume you're going to use them again. But I would highly suggest that you go with somebody else. U-Haul was great. Aside from just personal issues that I was dealing with in the move, using the U-Haul truck was a great situation. So, and like here, this is an apartment. It's temporary. We're still planning on buying something. So we're going to be moving again in the near future. I will never use Budget again in my entire life. Ever. Or Avis. And that goes for their cars either, just because I don't want to give them any money at all. So I will not rent a car, rent a truck from them ever again. Anybody else is fine at this point. But so I just want to put the word out there to you all. You know, take heed. Hopefully, if you are planning on moving in the near future, it goes much better than it did for me. I hope the new year is a great one for you. I plan on having a lot more entertaining stuff after this video. So this will probably be the last one that's this long and drawn out and kind of heart-wrenching. But this is a story that needed to be told. And thank you for letting me tell it. I appreciate that. I'll see you guys real soon. Keep on running and jumping.